So, just when you think things can't get any more woke in England, they can. Uh, we've got today Carl Benjamin's doing a video on Essex police using these facial recognition cameras. What they basically do is they park up a police van in a town centre in certain areas. It'll have a camera on the top, and it basically reads people's faces who are already in the system. You know, criminals, wanted criminals, etc. But they don't want to use the cameras now because it's basically catching predominantly black and brown people. So, yeah, you can't make it up. So they've been pushing this facial recognition in this country for years, and especially under Labour in these last couple of years. You know, digital IDs are trying to push facial recognition. You know, it's just like a nanny state. They just want complete control. But it looks like it's backfired, this one. Let's check it out.
Wow. I knew that something would save us from facial recognition cameras. And the only thing that the regime cares about is this going to affect our client minorities? That's the only thing they care about. It just does not matter whether it's good or bad, whether it works or not, as long as it doesn't affect the client minorities. I mean, look at this. Essex Police pauses use of live facial recognition cameras due to racial bias concerns. Ah, yeah. What were they? Let's have a look. Essex Police have paused this because of a positive identification rate and the potential bias in that. 200 people were recruited from the University of Cambridge for the University of Cambridge, and they found it correctly identified half of those on the watch list, that it was extremely rare for someone to be flagged up if they weren't on the list. But the study found it was statistically more likely to correctly identify black people than other ethnicities. It was also more likely to spot men than women. But correctly identify means that you are worried that it is racially biased.
It's doing its job
in accurately identifying criminals when they're black. And even if it was less likely to identify other ethnicities, you're still not saying it's incorrectly identifying them. So this is
you can't make
really
it up.
Eyebrow raising.
You can't make it up.
Researchers said it raised questions about.
You can't make it up. This is England. This is England in a nutshell. This is England in a nutshell, especially under Labour. Wet liberals running things that if this facial recognition camera was picking up even numbers of white people or predominantly just white people, they wouldn't have a problem with you. They wouldn't have a problem with you. And if someone white spoke up and had a problem with you, you know, they'd basically probably call you racist. But because it's picking up more black people, and as you said, correctly picking up, now they're going to shut the cameras off. They're not going to use the cameras. Oh, make it make sense.
Fairness. The required oh yeah, right, okay, it's not fair that we catch those criminals and not other criminals. Right, it's about fairness. It's fairness. Right. Oh yes, it's totally fair that we take this software down because it's correctly identifying black criminals over other ethnicities. Guardian has more information on this. As they say, the results were published last week showed about half the people on the watch list were correctly identified, and incorrect identifications were extremely rare, but the system was more likely to correctly identify men than women and was statistically significantly more likely to correctly identify black participants than participants from other ethnic groups. So this is about fairness in monitoring. One of its authors, Dr. Matt Bland, told The Guardian, if you're an offender passing facial recognition cameras, which are set up as they have been in Essex, the chances of you being identified as being on a police watch list are greater if you're black. To me, that warrants further investigation.
I mean, is this madness or what? They've pushed for this for years. They get it. It's doing its job. Even if it's, for some reason it's picking up, it can identify black people or brown people more than it can white people. So what? it's still, they've even admitted it's still doing its job. You know, it's still doing what it's supposed to do, and that's catch criminals. You know, but it has to be took down because it's not catching, you know, an evenly amount of different races. Is this madness or what? Is this madness? It's typical left ideology again. It just makes them, to anyone with common sense or half a brain, you know, it just always looks just like madness. Just looks like madness. No wonder they wanted Labour and all these wet liberals have closed down the insane asylums, because they'd be in them. They're probably worried that if they stay open, they'll end up in them.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you, because this is not the same problem as they list just underneath it, right? The problem differs from the more common public concern about the technology is that it identifies innocent people. Yeah, they're not saying that. They're not saying that the software identifies innocent people.
Saying it works.
What they're saying is, oh yeah, it's more likely to catch black people. So, well, I mean, maybe it is, but I mean, I'm like, hey, don't come to me whining, because I don't want you to have this kind of stuff anyway. But then I don't want the kind of society that necessitated them bringing this in the first place.
Exactly.
So all I'm saying is, you've made a rod for your own fucking backs here, haven't you, idiots? I mean, this one.
You know, they've pushed this. You know, we didn't want this. People didn't vote for this. You know, they've pushed this. Yeah. And now that it's not, it doesn't fit their ideology. Now they don't want it.
Like, based on a man arrested for burglary in a city he'd never visited 100 miles away because he looked the same as some other guy.
But you're always going to get that. You're always going to get with, you know, never mind with technology, just with, you know, in general people, you know, there's always going to be human error. With technology, there will always be, you know, glitches and errors. There's always going to be. But as long as there's not many of them, and as long as it's whether it's a person, whether it's, you know, technology like this, as long as it's doing its job, what's the problem? You know, I'm literally surprised that they haven't labelled this as Essex Police, you know, refuse to use racist facial recognition cameras. The cameras will be labelled as racist. Crazy.
It's just very interesting.
Absolutely.
But this
crazy.
isn't the first time that this has happened. This is an article from 2025 December, where police have admitted that they have used racially biased facial recognition technology because it was more likely to incorrectly identify black and Asian people than their white counterparts. So in this case, it was just not as good at identifying black and Asian people than white people. This isn't necessarily to say anything about the number of people who this one correctly identifies. This found that it delivered more false positives for black and Asian subjects than white people, 5.5%, 4%, and 0.04% respectively. The rate for black women was particularly high at 9.9%. Now, the common left-wing allegation about this is, well, the people who made it were white, and so they calibrate it and design it to identify features, sort of Caucasian European features, and therefore the bias is brought in by the people who made it because they made it with themselves in mind. It's like, yeah, maybe that's true, and don't get me wrong, this.
So you've got lefties complaining that them previous cameras. The previous cameras were picking up more white people than black, and a percentage of the black people it was picking up were not the right people. It was mistaken identifying them as criminals. But this one was picking up a lot more white people, and the lefties still complain about it. What they complain about now is it's not fair because it's only catching mainly white people. They're not saying it in terms of it's like racial to white people because it's only catching them. They're saying it's racial to ethnic groups not being caught enough because they're just favouring white criminals. Can you get your breath? Can you get your breath? Like, They just moved the goalposts, and oh god, let's just watch.
This is by far worse than this. Like, it's statistically more likely to identify black participants. So was this one made by the KKK or something? Or was this one also the KKK made this one, and we're like, oh right, it's catching us, right? Okay, reconfigure it to capture this group instead. Then shall we? I mean, what are we saying, honestly? But again, it's only because of the kind of society they have made that this sort of stuff has become necessary. I mean, we live in Britain, the most surveilled society in the world, and now we're going to have just non-stop 24/7 AI racially scanning us to see if we're on a watch list, which, I mean, just isn't the future marvellous? Everyone thought we were going to have flying cars and colonies on the moon, and instead we've got AI that's either too racist or not racist enough, depending on your perspective. Just incredible. Just incredible. Anyway, there is some good news about this, though. I mean, there is actually more tragic news on the racist AI facial recognition front, and as the Times reported in December, facial recognition will create no-go areas for minorities. Surveys have revealed concern and skepticism about the accuracy of the technology among some demographics, who may consider avoiding an area where it's in use. Right, okay. I mean, I am actually not that worried about this because I am not a criminal. I don't go around committing crimes.
Yeah, they're basically, look again, left ideology, basically saying, you know, this isn't a good thing. This isn't fair because it may bring down the amount of ethnic minority criminals. When they know there's this going on in an area, they may not come to that area anymore. Isn't that partly what it's supposed to do? Isn't it partly? I mean, if you can't catch the criminals, don't you want to like deter them from going into as many areas as possible and committing crimes? Like it just makes you wonder who's running. You know, who's running everything from the police to the education system. And I'm not talking about on a government level. I'm talking about, you know, who's infiltrated these, you know, all these different areas of society. Because I know what I think is infiltrated. You know, big fat Karens pushing feminism. That's what's behind a lot of this. Because women inherently have a protective nature. Women want to stop you from doing something. Women want to protect you from hurting yourself. You know, I've said this before, you know, the world was a lot more fun 20, 30 years ago, a lot more fun. And possibly because you had more of a male influence running the world back then, or running Western societies. I think, you know, and don't get me wrong, I'm not some woman hater. Do you know what I mean? But not like by a long shot. But I do think feminism, especially big fat childless Karens that have got way too much attitude and way too much to say, you know, they've basically integrated into society and levels of society where they can have too much to say and implement what, you know, they say, back it up kind of thing. And this is what we get.
So even if they have facial recognition, it's going to be shit. And even if it falsely identifies me, I'll be able to be like, well, okay, this is what I was doing at that time in that place. So, you know, whatever. I hate to make the, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear argument, but that's genuinely why I'm not really worried about these things.
I hate that argument.
To hide. But this is definitely not a very good advertising.
They was trying to put cameras like years ago. They've actually succeeded now. I'll tell you in a moment how. But they was trying to put cameras in England on every street corner. They wanted like a lamppost with CCTV on, you know, so they could, to the council, police, whoever, could surveil the area 24/7, surveil every street. Right? People were just not having that. People were outright not having that. I mean, as it happens, you know, in the 15, 20 years since they was trying that, it's worked anyway, because now, you know, almost everyone's got a Ring doorbell that films out into the street. a lot of people have got home CCTV, which again, police will get footage from those. So they've it's happened anyway. But a lot of people say that stupid argument that, well, if you've got nothing to hide, what does it matter? What does it matter? It's your freedoms. It's your freedom. You shouldn't have to be filmed 24/7. It doesn't matter if you're doing something. It's not about whether you're doing something right or wrong. You shouldn't have to be. How would you like it? Yeah, if people, you weren't doing anything wrong. You're in your house. You just do what you normally do. Nothing wrong. Right? How would you like if people put cameras in your home and could just watch you when they want? You wouldn't have it. I can't think of anyone that would be happy with that. But they're happy, or a lot of people would be happy, don't see it as a problem to be surveilled all the time. And it's a massive problem. Because if it deters crime, the surveillance, has got a lot more in England. And if it deters crime, how come the crime statistics are all through the roof now? How come the country is more dangerous than it's ever been? Cameras don't do anything. Cameras, you put a hood up, cover your face. What's the camera going to do?
For this AI facial recognition software, and we definitely shouldn't be using it on these grounds. Detailed surveys of public attitudes towards live facial recognition have revealed concern and skepticism about the accuracy of the technology. It's the accuracy of the technology that's the problem, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it just so happens to more accurately correctly identify people on watch lists if they're of minority groups. So, I mean, again, surely the worry that they have isn't mistaken identity. Not all groups commit crimes at the same rate, which I think is the issue here. But anyway, the findings show this will influence the behavior when the cameras are installed. Why, I'm actually not adverse to that. I'm actually not adverse to that. Surveys found that minority groups were more likely to avoid or consider avoiding an area where live facial recognition was in use. Well, that's really interesting. That's really, really interesting. And, teenagers, great. They'll avoid it too. Brilliant. Lesbian, gay, and bisexual people. And those educated to a degree level above. Oh my God, that sounds amazing. Those aged 55 and above, or people without educational qualifications, said they were more willing to enter public spaces where the technology was in use. Man, this is really interesting, isn't it? Really interesting. Because, I was always against hyper Orwellian technological dystopias until I realized that what it would do is create essentially the perfect environment for a Wetherspoon's garden. We could have the best.
No shitty little teenagers hanging around.
We could all just
no weirdo lefties everywhere. And no snobby, pretentious, degree level idiots.
Also, that's all I'm saying.
Lovely.
Right? It could be great. It could be incredible. We could live in paradise. All I'm saying is this is really winning me over to the need for mass AI surveillance facial recognition technology, just so we can have nice, relaxing summers. Just saying. Just saying. I mean, all I'm saying is I think this would be a lot of fun and it would make our lives so much easier. Right. I'm just saying I've always been against this kind of Orwellian dystopian stuff, but if the government seems
to have a plus side.
They have to. I mean, come on. They've been telling us for years they have to do it. Then I guess we just have to have it done. This technology has been rolled out in other places as well, and lo and behold, wouldn't you know it? It just happens to cause more racism in those countries. Racism. It just happens to racistly identify, because 90% of individuals arrested through the decisions based on facial recognition in Brazil are black. Wow, I mean, I can't believe they just happen to have the KKK facial recognition software as well. Crazy how the experts are suddenly like, yeah, no, we can't have this. This is racist. Really, it's not that there are differences between groups of people in society. Of course, in America, this is reinforcing racist stop and frisk policing. How could it be? How dare it be this racist to for some reason? This is another thing as well, right? isn't it weird how it's always racistly targeting the same demographic over and over, no matter where in the world that you go? It's racistly identifying that group of people.
Yep. Isn't that strange?
As being more prone to criminality than others. That's very interesting. Very, very interesting. So, of course, ban the scan campaign. Yep, we've got to ban it because it's racist. It's not finding the same results and the same levels of criminality equally amongst all groups, and therefore the software is the problem. Therefore, the AI is the problem. Canada, they have this rolled out. And of course, in Canada, they're like, well, this does kind of change the nature between the relationship and between citizens and law enforcement. It's like, yes. And this is the argument we were making all this time, and nobody cared. Nobody gave a damn. The only time you cared is when you thought it was racist. The only time you cared is when you thought it affected minorities.
Typical.
If you thought it would only affect the white majorities in these countries, you wouldn't give a damn at all, would you?
There it is.
Like these like concerns about, ethics and not living in Orwellian dystopias are just such.
It's all bollocks.
They're so in the rearview mirror for these people that there's just no point even bringing it up, is there? And the thing is, we've been down this road before, haven't we? This is just another police body camera event where the left was like, yep, the reason for these inequalities and outcomes is because all the police just hate black people. They just hate them for some reason. And it's just a perennial problem that has been going for decades and decades and decades. And so the only way to fix it is to make sure that every single thing a policeman does is monitored. And what did we get from the body camera footage? Well, it wasn't exactly very flattering. And it actually kind of suggested that there was a cultural problem in that community. And so, okay, well, the body camera footage is the problem.
I mean, there's a big thing in America with this, isn't there, at the minute? Not with the body cams, with the they call it, and you've got like a lot of content creators and online speakers, some big names in entertainment, and they basically label this as black fatigue. And when I'm saying you've got like big names, I'm saying these are all black people, and it's basically to say like that. Because in America, they've sort of, the left have sort of pushed against, like, it's racist, all the cops are racist, it's a racist country, racist. So it's almost like, this is what they say, it's almost like they've give black people a bit more leeway. Do you know what I mean? To say to disrespect police a bit more, to be a bit more of a burden on society, to cause more issues and get a bit more leeway, to basically just be problems in society, and people are just having enough of it, and a lot of influential black people in America are starting to really call this out. So yeah, that's and it sort of relates to what he's saying here about the when they brought in the body cams.
And in the same way, the AI itself is the problem. Now, like I said, I don't really want to live in a techno dystopia, but if it is going to produce essentially Wetherspoon's town centres, well, maybe I'm more up for it. Maybe an argument can be made. Anyway, come and join us at the live event, folks.
Yeah, so there it is. There's another example of absolutely crazy woke left ideology at play. Yeah, just madness. Yeah. Now the cameras are racist. If you say you're proud of your country, you're racist. But now the AI, facial recognition AI, is also racist. So I hope you like this one. The usual, like, subscribe, drop a comment, and I'll see you on the next one.